Welcome to the Big Roofs podcast where we talk about all things roofing. We're your hosts, John and AJ, and we are joined today by a very special guest, Chris Diroll with Ready Diroll Consulting. And thank you for coming on the show, Chris.
What's happening, man? It's ready to roll. Come on.
Ready
Makes
to roll?
doesn't it make
Yeah.
sense now? The wheel.
Oh yeah,
Diroll.
yeah. That's there we go. All right, I'll get it right
Well,
next time. Ready
it's all
Diroll.
good.
I love
Uh,
it. Well, thanks for coming on. How's it
yeah, man,
going?
I'm happy to be here. I know we've known you guys for a long time, so it's easy for me to give you a little bit of a hard time this morning. So I know it's still early in the coding and developer world of the ProLine team. So
That's right. That's right. I got up on time today though. So yeah. Missed our call yesterday, but not today.
That's funny.
Yeah. So Chris, why don't you give everybody a little bit of an intro and tell us a little about your story. Maybe start back. So you've been a customer of ProLine in the past.
yep.
And so maybe kind of start there and kind of walk us through how you kind of your story in the roofing industry and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so we can start even a couple steps before that too, because it kind of all my journey really began starting. I had paper out at 10 years old, and for 6 years had that, and I delivered over 100,000 newspapers. So at a young age, basically, I was managing subs. I had a couple buddies in my neighborhood that helped me deliver that, so that I didn't have to do the work and could make some cash. And so I've always had a background kind of doing my own little business, but I went through school as an engineer, started in corporate America, worked in design engineering, manufacturing, kind of got all that training, seeing how the big companies do it. And then realized I hated working at corporate America, and I made the switch to join my father-in-law in a roofing business that he had started. So solo operator, been doing it by himself for 30 years, and then I joined him in 2016. Everything was pen and paper. When I say that, I mean literally everything was pen and paper except for the orders that he called into the distributor, which were written on pen and paper, the books, all that stuff. And so I worked through the past 7-ish years, really doing whatever we could to bring our business more like a manufacturing company ran their operation with software technology, whatever we could do to kind of multiply our efforts in the business. And so it's a typical story of hand measure roofs, eventually make the switch to satellite measurements. You see your, sales go up those years. And we were doing those things that were trying to just follow everybody else in the industry. And so John was one person I had been, following, listening to on podcasts and stuff a few years back. And it's like, man, that's the process we're kind of working on, but he's got it a little bit more refined. And so ProLine was still kind of in the infancy. It was just more of the messaging app at that point. And so I was like, this does what I needed, where it had all the follow-ups written for me. And then I didn't have to do that stuff. So I could focus my time on selling, because we were constrained where we weren't hiring more people in our business. And so it was like, hey, what can I do to take the non-selling activities off of my plate? And so satellite measurements, ProLine messaging, follow-up, all that type of stuff enabled me to focus on the important things. And so we've been using ProLine, and it's been something that when we started it, the first thought we had was like, hey, we've bid so many roofs in the past, 3-4 years. What are we doing to re-engage with those people? And so it all started with the idea of that lead rehash campaign. And we paid you guys to help us set that up. And it was like, holy crap, we just paid for ProLine, the subscription, and the lead rehash setup, like all in the first week of 4 or 5 days worth of text messages, re-engaging our old clients. And so it's something that we've seen kind of the journey, how it's gone from the messaging side now to more like the CRM all-in-one tool. And it was something that when we saw it, the big thing for me is it's just like, I don't have to do the work to write all these messages out. And so again, it was a big time savings in my mind of, here's where I can save a bunch of time and I can just take the heavy lifting off of my plate. So that kind of, in a short version, gets us to here, where after we did that, now we got the business to a point where I realized I didn't love running the day-to-day of the roofing business. We had hired my wife and her two sisters into the business, and we had two virtual assistants that we also added because of SMA support. And so they helped staff our team, where I was able to step out, and now I opened a consulting company where I help other people that are, how do I make that jump? Where's the thing I need to solve next so that I can, be a little more efficient, sell a little bit more, get some time back in my day. And so I work on all of the things that we did for our business to allow us to sell 200 roofs a year with one outside salesperson, my sister-in-law. My wife is running it, and her younger sister is our ops manager. It's like, that's the business in my mind. Like, we weren't driving for revenue. We weren't looking for lots of money. We just wanted to get a business that's going to work for us. And then I now am working to help other people where it's like, I'm making good money. I don't need more money. What I need is time, or I need just something to make my life easier. And that would make me happy. I don't need more. I just want what I'm doing. Let's make it a little better. And you're going to get more when that happens. So,
Yeah, I love that. Love that approach. John and I have been talking about that recently. It's that mindset is it's it's not the most common where but it's I think it's a really healthy mindset, which is like it's not always about building the biggest business. It's about actually what do you take home at the end of the day and how much time do you want to put in to get that. Um, and some people just want to build the biggest business, and that's fine too. But that's a completely different game. Whereas if you're just trying to create an amazing lifestyle for yourself, you probably don't need as big of a business as you think you need.
exactly. Yeah, that's one thing. I think my background, like seeing the corporate America sides of things, and like the thing that set me on the, like, I was pretty sure I was not in the right seat and this wasn't going to make me happy long term, but it was one where it's like I could hit cruise control on this, make 150K a year easy, and be just letting it on, kind of go on cruise control. But I knew that it was just something that's not going to make me feel like I'm actually doing something every day. And the problem is that the people that I worked with, the managers I had, they were all good people, but the organizations get so big, and those big companies, they're always driven at the top by what ends up being finance people, where they're just doing stuff to make the numbers and the lines go like this. And so they started doing things like changing incentive programs, things of this nature, where you're not incentivizing me to be a sales guy anymore. It's like I'm a project manager who needs to spin the wheel. And when you start monkeying with people's incentive structures because the share price and the, things like that, it's like, you know what? You're not looking out for me. You're looking out for the people that are the problem with all of this in the first place, where it's like they just want to make the most money and they don't care what happens on all the steps below it. And so I think that was one where it's just like it pissed me off. And it's like, man, I never want to be going for that. And it's like one of the books that I read, this is a book that I recommend to so many people. It's called Designing Your Life. It's by, what is it, Dave Evans and Bill Burnett. But like, one of the things that the exercise that it has you do is like put a little gauge on things that you do each week. It's like, all right, take the past, week, 5 days, write down all the activities you're doing, how much happiness you get out of it, and how much energy it takes out of you. And what you're going to see is like, there's lots of things in your day that make you happy and don't take energy. And there's things that take lots of energy and don't make you happy. And it's like, man, what can I do to eliminate those and get myself more of the things that are, fulfilling me, making me money, and making me happy? So it's always been trying to just solve that question, I guess. That's the pursuit I'm on.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that mindset. Um, well, talk to us about so Ready Diroll Consulting. Tell us about the what you do with your clients. What is the what is it that you offer, and kind of walk us through why it is that you decided to offer these things and work on these things.
Yeah, so what I typically do, there's like most things, it's like we got to figure out where you're at. So I got certified through there's an author of a book. He's got a program. It's called the Fix This Next book. It's a great book to figure out like where's my most burning fire? What floor of the building is the fire on? So it starts sales, working your way up through like the operations, the order level, and then impact, legacy, long term. And so there's a lot of people that are thinking about these upper levels farther into the future where they need to go and what they're thinking they got to do to get there, but they really need to start somewhere lower first. So I start with most people. It's like, hey, let's jump on a quick discovery call and figure out like, where are you trying to go? And usually a lot of times there's some really low hanging fruit of what do you need to fix immediately that could help you solve a few problems before you think about marketing, leads, in additional softwares and stuff. And so the most people come to me with, oh, I want this somewhere 3, 4 steps down the road, but it's like, let's back up back into step one and figure out where you're going. From there, we're going to work. A lot of times we build some custom sell sheets. So whether you have, you're doing roofing and you're doing any type of roof replacement, coatings, metals, etc., you're selling those to a client. And so if you don't understand who your ideal client is, We're going to sit down and have a marketing strategy session. We're going to build a little blueprint for, hey, what's this business that you're looking to get more of? And then we're going to build some sell sheets that speak directly to that person. And so for many of the people like the ProLine users, anybody that's selling shingle roofs, it's like we're selling to one, two, three types of people. We know if you've been doing this long enough, if you go out and meet with homeowners, there's not a lot of variation. We know the things that you're going to ask, the questions that they have, the problems that they face. So let's build your proposal in a way that they can see that you're going to be the person to solve their problems, answer their questions, and they didn't even have to ask you because you've presented and said, listen, I'm so sure that I know answers to these questions because I've done this and I've asked these to so many homeowners have spoken to me about this before. I've got this all here. So when I come out for my site visit, I don't have to spend an hour with you. I can spend the time. You've had a chance to look through a sell sheet that gives me the rundown so that I'm familiar with you and we can kind of get to business a little bit quicker. Once we have that and you've got a sell sheet that really enables your business to pitch to a customer without you in front of them, and we find ways for you to use something like that to drive more business on a website. Let's come up with some ideas of, we built some sell sheets for you, but what can we do to make that a little homeowner's guide so that when somebody comes to your website, they can download this after the contact. And so we'll build some strategies of, here's some low hanging fruit to add value to your customer in that journey of the roof replacement process. Once we know that, hey, we've got a sell sheet that can really sell for us and explain us, then we can start thinking more about the operations and behind the scenes of what are those things that we need to do, whether it's speaking to a customer before they've closed a sale or managing that customer better throughout the operation side of it when they're ready for production. And so that can be a number of things, whether it's implementing some strategy sessions where we're going to work to clean up your process. So it's like, hey, let's see if we can automate some things on your existing system. Are there levers that we could pull, make changes that we could make to make your operation more efficient? And so we'll have discussions about virtual assistants, instant roof quote tools like Roofle, things like that, where we can, if we're building a sandwich, it's like, let's add the lettuce, let's add the tomato, let's add the sauce now. So, but at the beginning, it's like, we need that basic of, do you have qualifying questions? Do you have all these things sorted out before we work on a more efficient organization? And then the last part, is usually some sort of continuing strategy where people are like, hey, we've got all that stuff under control. Now I need to find ways to get additional leads for my business besides paying for Google, paying for this. And so people will come to me and say, hey, I want you to create a funnel where I can get some commercial roof coatings customers, or I want specific shingle roofing customers. It's like, okay, we got to go back to that first phase of, let's think through this. If you have all that in place, great, let's start working on building those things. But a lot of times, what people need from me and what I provide for contractors is, pay me for some time so I can pick your brain and we can kind of, I don't know, let's use the boxing analogy since that's been pretty present in our industry lately. It's like, let me be your sparring partner for ideas where it's like, hey, I have an ideal process that I've built in my business. You come up to me, we can talk and see what you can do to kind of punch yours up and make yours a little bit better, closer to an ideal process and what we're missing along the way. So
Yeah. So I'm hearing this all starts with going through and building out that marketing, that one-page marketing plan, right? That's
yep,
the beginning of all of this
yep,
and the
yeah,
foundational
marketing,
piece.
a
What
blueprint, yep.
the blueprint. So let me ask you this, like, what is the symptoms that you see in roofing business of a business that has not done the one-page marketing plan, or a marketing plan in general, does not have that all mapped out already? What does that look like? What are we solving? Or like, what is the symptoms? What is the outcomes of not doing that?
The outcomes of not doing it is that you won't be specific in the channel that you choose to market, for example. And so if you say, my customer is anybody with a shingle roof, well, there's a lot of different people that are going to shop in different channels for that. And so if you think you're advertising to anyone with a roof versus a specific person in a specific neighborhood that buys it a specific way, it's a much, much broader search term. And so you're going to put out, pay for ads. You're going to run uh, marketing promotions, things of that nature, where it's talking to anybody, but not really talking to anybody at all specifically. And so the best forms of advertising in marketing to your customers is going to be when you're speaking to a specific person. And so if you don't know who it is you're talking to, you're going to talk in vague terms and it's not going to get the right eyeballs on it. So you're going to spend more money on leads if you're running for paid ads, because they're not going to convert as well as somebody who speaks to a client specific problem. for one example.
Yeah. Would you say that if a contractor is struggling maybe with what to say in their advertising
Yep.
and or they're putting something out, they figure out what to say, but then it's not attracting a, a really good result. Like they're not getting, it's not engaging with the audience like they want it to. Those are
Yep.
those would be like symptoms of, like, if that's you, if you're hearing that, then you might just not have your marketing strategy in
Yeah,
place
here's a good one.
first.
So let's say you're running an ad. So you're running an ad like in a directory for your city directory where it's going to be mailed only to residents. It's not going to be mailed to, commercial properties. This is a resident directory. Okay, well, if you put an ad up that says roofing, like here's our logo, here's our phone number, here's our manufacturer certifications, and then commercial roofing, flat roofing, metal roofing, shingle roofing, that's probably not talking to the right person, because when you open that flyer up and you see, there's playground sets, there's things like that, they're speaking to, this is going to families. You need to write an ad that's going to talk to families. Sure, maybe somebody living there is a commercial property manager and they see it, but the odds are most of the people that open that up, it's a person that owns a house in the neighborhood and they're going to be thinking, I need a shingle roof only. They're not thinking about these other items. And so you should really drive your messaging on that to that person so that when they open this up, there's a better chance they're going to call you versus, oh, I don't see something that I engage with. It's just a bunch of things about roofing. So,
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like, and it doesn't seem like I mean, it seems like it's some work, but it's not like a massive undertaking to do this, right?
mm-mm.
You mentioned it, like it's one page, right? That you're filling out.
Yep. Yeah,
What
this
is
is,
that? Can you kind of
I've got
walk
a,
us through some of it? Like,
yeah,
what, give
so,
us some
well,
examples.
So I've got a stack of books too, because I feel like it's always like I started, it's all self-taught. Like I didn't really pay people. I didn't have a marketing background. And so I used things that people either referred to me, I found. But this is the book. It's called The One-Page Marketing Plan by Alan Dibb. Basically, it's a 9 block like sequence that you go through, and it walks you through every part of the journey that your customer is going to be on. And so it starts with the idea of, who is this person you're trying to sell to, and get very specific, like put a name to them, put an age to them. So if you've never created the customer avatar before, it's going to walk you through that, help you figure out what's the emotions that they face along this journey. And then it's like, okay, I know who it is. Well, what's the messaging I'm going to use to reach them? How am I going to talk about this? And so it gives some examples, like if you're going to instant roof quote for me, like that was a huge source of business for us. And so what we realized I like using this example, is my ideal customer for who's going to use the instant roof quote tool is likely a mom that lives in the suburbs of some specific neighborhoods in the Detroit metro region where we're at. Her biggest fear that she faces in the journey is usually stress, because she's fearful that she's going to be either taken advantage of, or it's something where it's just so many unknowns in the process that she is always going into these appointments stressed out, a little cautious. And so it's like, okay, I know that's her fear. What can I do along the way to solve that primary fear for her? And so it's like, hey, we worked on creating a message. What's my message to her? And so the one-page marketing plan for the messaging part's good, but there's another book, and I shout out the Contractor Dynamics people. They sent this to me, Marketing Made Simple by Donald Miller. The story brand is really, really good for crafting an elevator pitch for people. And so in this case, that homeowner, it's like, hey, you know how roofers always want to take a bunch of your time, only to throw out some astronomical quote and then high pressure pitch you into trying to close that day. Well, we've partnered with a developer that allows us to give you an instant roof quote tool in less than 60 seconds. And then you can follow up with us and talk to us when you're ready. And so it's something where you can craft a message that you speak to a problem that she has, and then a solution that you provide without having to sell something to it. It's like, hey, here's a solution I've got for you. Once you figure out that message, then you think through, where am I going to put this message? So, okay, so we've got this message. Is it Google Ads? Probably not. Is it Facebook? Maybe. For us, it's Nextdoor. And it turned out we don't even have to pay for it. We just post organically on Nextdoor. And so what we realized is it's a very, very simple strategy to just go interact with people on Nextdoor and say, hey, when somebody asks for a roof, I'm going to type right here, we have an instant roof quote tool that saves you this with that little message. We ended up from that, then you get them into your funnel, they fill out the lead, and then you figure out, okay, what am I going to do to follow up with these people? What am I going to do to nurture this lead, to do the things to convert them into a sale? We can build some processes along the way. And then this is the things where I can help coach people like, hey, what's the message? Once you've done a demo, once you've gone out on site, what are you doing in your follow-up sequence after the fact to show that you're the right choice? So for us, there was a couple things in ProLine, what we do, again, back to that, I didn't have to do it. There's 2 years of follow-up sequences built in there, but the best part is I said, all right, I'll just do the first like 3 messages, and we're going to create a little strategy where I answer the top 5 questions that these homeowners are going to have after the site visit. It's like we sat as a team, walked through what's the top 5 questions they call after we do a demo. It's like, boom, we're going to build a little video, or we're going to build a guide or something that we link back on our website and send them a text. Hey, thanks for letting us come out. Here's some questions that you might think of after our site visit we wanted to share with you. Another one is, hey, we can't get people to pick the colors. That's always something that they need help with along the way. Great, let's build that into the follow-up. So we add value by helping them choose a color, and we show them a project gallery on our website and the company cam showcase saying, look at all these jobs we've done. You're making a good decision. Then once they close a job, what are you doing after the fact? What are you doing to get reviews? What are you doing to get referrals? What are you doing to make sure that you deliver a gold standard process to that customer so that when you get to the end, they won't stop talking about you, and they won't stop talking about you back on that channel that you found them in the first place. And so it's just going to reinforce that cycle of we're speaking to those people, and then they're going back to their little sphere of influence to continue talking about your business. So that's kind of like the blueprint in a nutshell. We can get deeper than that on like more of the ideas, which is typically the problem that people have. They're like, well, what should I say? What should I do? It's like, I'll help you put all that together. And so with, basically an hour and a half meeting with me and a client, I can go through this with them and then kind of build a plan of like, this is the plan of attack for you and your business for solving this immediate goal of, I want more shingle roofs. It's like, great, let's target this. And we don't want to spend money to do it. Great. Here's what we're going to go after then. So,
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, so as you get that plan built out, it becomes, I mean, I guess it's not, you still have decisions, but it becomes more clear where you need to advertise, like what channels, and then what to say to
yep.
them after they're in your process.
Yep.
Um,
I
and
mean,
then,
ideal clients, like, because ProLine can be used not just for like a shingle roof replacement, it can be used for commercial stuff too. Like if you've got commercial leads, you can use that, but the way you're going to talk to a commercial person is totally different than a homeowner. And so it's like, we're going to build something, a sell sheet, a plan that's going to speak to the differences between, between the coating versus replacement and a maintenance plan and a long-term return on your investment, things of this, that it's going to be maybe a little bit higher level, which like one of the clients I work with, like, I don't know what the right way to word these things are. And I'm like, well, who's the guy that's reading this? When you send something to him, whatever it is, like who's reading it? What does he care about? It's probably a guy that has some ties to the finance level of his business a lot of times, where he's going to make a decision based on numbers and not as much of the other things. And so it's like, all right, we need to speak about that versus the homeowner, we're going to speak totally different to them too. And so,
yep, that totally makes sense. So, yeah, I love all this talk with the messaging. I mean, we have so much built out already by default in ProLine, but we can only, it has to be super generic. Like because we are building it for so many, to work for so many different roofing companies. Yeah, it's way better than nothing, but it's also, there's so much room for improvement. And we always tell people this, like, hey, like we encourage you to customize the messaging inside of ProLine for yourself. But
well,
how
I'll
many people
speak
actually do it?
and I'll speak to that even because like I remember setting this up and looking through some of these thinking like these get a little cheesier. That's like it's not what I'm like thinking it's not what I would open. And then it's like, okay, just let it go. I don't have time to mess around with this right now. But then what I realize is like you'll get responses from people to the ones where it's like the home run. And it's like, hey, like that message, I remember getting people that it's like I thought it was cheesy or kind of silly. And then it's like, boom, that's the one that people responded to. And so it goes back to the like, not every person is going to engage with that same thing. And so that's kind of what's nice about it too, where there's a lot of different things that they're not pushy follow-ups. It's just, hey, we're just checking in. Like it's not necessarily follow-ups. It's more nuanced than that.
Yeah. And it's a good good starting point. But once you have your marketing plan, right, then you kind of know more of what to say. And let's get into your what you call sell sheets. So this
Yeah.
is a great, we're talking about the text and the emails, and that's great. But your quote, your messaging in your quote itself, super, super pivotal in this process. Kind of, we actually have an example to show, but why don't you give people an overview? What is a sell sheet? Kind of define that.
Yeah, so the sell sheet, think of it as what you're typically submitting to a homeowner as part of a proposal for your bid. Most people are using sell sheets that have been created by a manufacturer with manufacturer's information on it and nothing about your own brand. So think of it like a Certainty, GAFOC, one of those nice, pretty folders where it's like, oh, you see the system, you see the technologies and all that. The sell sheet is explaining the product that you sell, the roof, to a customer, but it's a tool that allows a customer to basically we visualize the process instead of putting it in a text-based format. And so we make sure that the photos, the imagery that is on there are things that people can see what you're talking about. Because when you send a bid to a customer, whether you're using any of the quote softwares, if it's just text, they're scrolling to the price and that's it. They don't care about everything else that's written. And so we are creating a sheet in your proposal so that somebody can actually be sold by that page.
Love that. And you've done this for John.
Yeah.
And so hopefully this doesn't mess up our recording in any way, but I'm going to share my screen and let's take a look at John's quotes. So this is our cover page, which is part of ProLine. But as we start scrolling, we can see here, this is a little different than what our default pages in ProLine look like. This is a custom page in ProLine. And yeah, so tell us what's going on here, Chris. This is one of your sell pages, right?
Yep, exactly. So all of this idea started from when we were bidding roofs in our business digitally ahead of a site visit because I was too overloaded during some weeks that I couldn't get to everybody in a timely manner. And so I started sending bids ahead of time. And so we started with like, what's all the things I tell you on a site visit that we want to, send ahead of time so that they hopefully will still call me. And so we build the quotes with the beginning of like, what do you typically tell a homeowner? It's like, let's tell you the story about me, the founder, the owner, and what we do and why we do it. It's like, well, I want to personalize that in the first page. So it's not just here's some roof stuff. So we start with a cover page where it's a letter from the owners. And so I worked with John and Cameron on this to kind of talk about the way they learn about your business so that we can work to create a message that really speaks to the people on your team and how they're going to help the homeowner along this journey.
Love that. Nice. So moving down in here, your journey with Peach State Roofing. So yeah,
Yes.
tell me about this page.
So if you think about like what is an ideal customer in my mind, the customers I'm going to sell to, what do they really care about? It's not the shingles. And even the shingle manufacturers will tell you, like the Atlas guy that wears the money suit on the road tour, Stan, I think's his name. He's like, they do a survey and they know after 12 months, most people don't know the products that was installed on their roof. And so when you think about this process, it's like what differentiates you and your roofing business from anybody else? And it's the people. And people want to understand, okay, I don't mind that I'm going to work with 4 people, but I would like to know who it is, who do I talk to, and when do I talk to them, and what's the steps along the way, just so that I'm familiar with them. And so we introduce, here's the team and here's who you're going to work with and what they're going to do along each of these steps for you, so that if you have questions, at least it's a way for us to try and eliminate homeowners calling me directly to say, hey, I got a problem with this. It's like, no, they've seen this. We've talked them through it, that I'm not the operations person. I'm the guy that's coming out to walk the roof, look for these problems, do the inspections. But once we get to this point, here's who you're going to talk to. And so in John's case, it's like Kathleen is the one for them that's going to handle everything at the beginning and kind of in the middle. And then John and Cameron are there along the way at step 2 when they come out for a roof inspection. And so it helps the homeowner understand what's going to happen and who's going to be the one to make it happen for me.
I love that. All right, and then we have our roof packages.
Yeah, so back to the prior comment, we still did put that, we've got the branding on there. But for the roofs, when you go out and speak to homeowners, and this was my experience, most people are going to fall into one of two buckets. When you're going to pitch a good, better, best option to them, they know they can self-select ahead of time. And so when they can see this page, it kind of gives them the idea of, all right, what am I looking at? Metal is best, and it's like it's in its own category. It's standing above the rest. We know most people aren't going to pay for this and aren't going to get this done. So yes, this is our best. But when we talk shingles, there's going to be a couple other levels. And so what we did is we wrote the verbiage and stuff on this page so that if somebody's looking at this, like, what's the difference between the better, the good, and the basic? The basic, it's like, hey, it's a great, efficient protection, but it's got to focus on value and quality. The words that we're going to put there, instead of saying, hey, this is the cheap roof, it's like value, quality, they're both there for you, versus some of the stuff on like the better roofs. They're going to speak to things that somebody with a little bit more money or a specific concern may be willing to pay more for. So, hey, if you are looking for more solar reflectivity, you're probably looking at a Pinnacle Sun or Pinnacle Impact if you're in a hail prone area. And so we're writing things so that customers will look and say, hey, this is not my forever home. This is not something I'm going to be staying at. And so when you go out to talk to them, they're going to probably tell you, hey, I'm looking between this package and this package. And then it gives you that better starting point, because they've been able to understand which bucket they might fall in and which are the features of that package that they care about. Because when we get down to it, there's not much differences about all the shingles. All the manufacturers got the same stuff, they solve the same problems. Everybody's got their preferences, but let the customer see, what's the difference in a high level term, not this has got, a couple more pounds per square, things like that. It's not a stat sheet.
Yep. No, that makes sense. That information is a little too much for the homeowner.
And then, so the solutions pages, this is something as part of the blueprint for John. What we kind of talked through and what we worked on was we wanted to make this sell sheet something that was not a 20-page long quote. He didn't want a super long quote. He wanted it to be something that's a little bit shorter, but also something that we could double as a tool to either get leads on the website or utilize pages within the quotes, not just as a part of the process, but in other areas of the business. And so this is one where it's like, hey, we're going to design this so it answers a lot of the questions that I'm commonly asked on a site visit, like, why would I do hidden fastener standing seam metal? And it speaks to the homeowners in the they ask, you answer format, of here's the problems we solve and here's the things that we're solving for you, versus telling you again back to specs and things that they're just going to glance over. So present the material in a way they can see some pictures, see what's the thing. If it's something that they didn't even know you guys offered gutters and gutter guards, they might see this on this page and say, oh, cool, less maintenance because I don't have to clean my gutters. I didn't even think about that. But now that I know John offers this, hey, let's talk to John when he comes out on site and look into this.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is kind of a continuation of that.
Yep, and we basically just took all the packages of like, okay, what between Impact, Sun, what's the big thing about Pinnacle Pristine? Because that's the better roof. That's what we're typically selling most of. Great Scotch Guard. We're going to focus on Scotch Guard. And then the two of like hailstorms and cool in the summer sun. Again, smaller customer demographic because you're not selling as many of those roofs, but the people that are curious about it or interested, this is the information that they're going to see, and it tells it to them in a way that I always think of like the retired engineer dad, him when you go out and do a sales visit with him, like, oh, what'd you used to do? I was an engineer. Oh, okay, great. Let's talk impact and let's talk sun shingles and metal because you care about these things. And he's going to be the one that's going to look at the impact rating and rubberized polymer and be like, ooh, cool. But somebody else that's not looking at those, they're going to gloss over them because it's not something that's speaking to them because they weren't interested in the first place.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then we have upgrades.
Yep. So how do you boost your ticket price and boost your overall profit on a job without having to be a pushy sales guy? Just let people know what you can do for them. Show them that, hey, here's a problem that I can solve for you. So if you're in a forever home, you're maybe going to consider a lifetime pipe boot. I forget what John, you guys are charging for them, but I know it's like you're making good money. And anybody that sells these lifetime pipe boots, I've got a couple other guys that we put them into their sell sheets too. Not every customer is going to buy it, but the people that will buy it, it's like, great, I'll get 20 of those guys a year. It's like, cool, we just made an extra 10 grand this year just from having this shown there. And I didn't even have to talk about it. And this is where, going back to the blueprint of thinking about not just you as the owner, but who else is going to sell for you someday? If it's going to be somebody else, you're going to add more people to your business. How do you build a sales pitch that, if you don't have a big presentation, or a PowerPoint and all this stuff, like, here's my sales pitch so that I know that my sales guy is going to go through all the important stuff on every one of these site visits with a homeowner. He'll talk about gutters and the pipe boots, and then I'll talk about the other FAQs that I want to make sure he brings up. And then, this is kind of that last sheet of, hey, here's what else we might have for you, and try and answer the questions that will save you a phone call from a customer later because you've outlined that ahead of time.
Yep. Makes sense. Well, no, I love this. We're getting into down here, the more standard stuff generated by ProLine.
One of the things we're working on next is now that I know we got the header options in here, we're going to do some custom headers just so the branding stays consistent on these other pages. Because that'll be the nice thing. I think I was thinking through this more, where it's like, the homeowner that might print this off when they say, hey, I'm going to print these bids off at the table. We've got this beautiful quote, but if they only print these 3 pages, it's really nice that ProLine's got the ability for me to just throw a little bit of a branding header on those additional good, better, best pages to, if they don't print it all, they still see that stuff up top. So
Yep.
that's the missing cherry on top that I'm going to take care of for John. So
Love that. It's gonna be awesome. John, just as you mute your mic to deal with something.
I'm so sorry that I've been interrupting this whole time. Okay, quick notes. I really enjoy working with Chris. We have known each other for a little while. If you are in the roofing space, you probably struggle with implementation, just in general. Whether you're a production guy or a sales guy, you probably struggle with implementation, actually doing the things you know you're supposed to do. You also may think you know what you're supposed to be doing, and you haven't narrowed it down enough. Like, the marketing blueprint is exactly what I find valuable for any company. And it's just not, you can't go into a Facebook group and say, hey, can I do, you can get some information, but you're not really going to get the correct information for your business and who your ideal customer is. If you are thinking about all these consultants and all these coaches and all this, like, it can be Chris, it can be anyone. There's good people, there's bad people. What Chris does is he identifies and then he implements. And that is really, really important for all of us. It doesn't matter if you're good at it either. If you're great at either one of those things, you need another person to help you be better at the identification of your ideal customer, ideal job type. And you need to do it pretty frequently too. You can't just say I've done it and then I'm done, because it does change. Each year, our ideal customer changes slightly. Our ideal job changes, the size, all those things are really, really important to understand what marketing's working, what marketing is not working, where you should put your dollars towards, where you shouldn't. And then you can have all that plan. You can do all that great work and take all that time and work with your team. But if you don't actually do it, it doesn't matter. So that's the value that I found that Chris brings to roofing contractors. From my perspective, it's you just need someone to walk alongside you to do those two things. We're too busy. I mean, as we've been on this call, one reason I've been quiet is because I'm dealing with an issue, and then I'm dealing with another issue, and it's like, I've got a team that helps support me, and I'm still having to do these things. So you need to take time out of your weekly schedule and get this set up so that you're identifying and implementing these things on a consistent basis. That's
Absolutely.
It's a good segue to a thought, because I know the next step is like, okay, so like sell sheets, the operation stuff. So one of my clients that I worked with, they've got a team of 3 sales guys, and he was talking to me, and he's like, it's just, we're not hitting the numbers that we need to. I need somebody. He's like, I've never seen somebody with as good of a dashboard that they built themselves for all of their data, but it still was missing a couple pieces that wasn't letting him really see the full story. And so he's like, I don't know what's going on. The numbers aren't where they need to be. I'm spending too much on ads and I'm not getting what I think I need to. And so what I said is, all right, give me this data. Back in my corporate America days and nerded out in Microsoft Excel, that was my jam, is like, let me do data analysis. And so what I did is I ended up pulling a lot of his existing data that he had, looking at it a little bit different way. And we started looking through, all right, let's, if you don't know your sales performance by team person and by city, and you can't say, hey, how does this guy do in this city? And who's my best person in this city? Well, if one guy is batting 1 out of 50 and the other two are batting like 4 out of 10, we shouldn't send any appointments to Mr. 1 out of 50. And this was kind of a part of a bigger problem where we realized a lot of these issues aren't an operations issue. It's at the front of the line. It's like, let's look at that script that you're answering team, whether it's your answering service, your virtual assistant, your inside person. What's that script look like? And it's like, oh gosh, I can see why we're having these problems is because we're not qualifying people correctly. We're not doing these things correctly, which is leading to issues that pop up later down the line, whether that's sending the wrong people to the wrong appointment or going to appointments that we should never have gone to. It's like, why do you send your sales guy 45 minutes west when he lives 30 minutes east on a Friday at 3 o'clock for a $500 fascia trim repair? It's like, no wonder you can't keep people. And I'm not speaking to that account because he's awesome with his team. But like, owners that aren't considering those things, it's like, why am I getting turnover? Why are people leaving? It's like, because you don't have a good process to think about the jobs you're asking your people to do. And it's like, if we have sales guys that can crush it and sell 5-figure, $60,000 siding jobs, it's like, he should never go look at a job less than $20,000. Like, don't put it on his plate. And so what we ended up doing was creating kind of his sales territory map where we built strategy for him and his business that works for the capabilities of his team and the guys on his team. And now we set it up so he's got one guy that's just the repair small projects and specific zip codes. And then the A and B plus player, they are all the big projects, none of the little projects. And then the additional layer that we're adding and working on implementing right now is, how do we say the stuff that we should say no to that's kind of out of our territory? Can we say yes to that if we've shown them some numbers ahead of time and save us some of that legwork of these site visits? And so we're now working on building if you're outside of this of our core area, we'll still say yes, but you need to send us pictures. We're going to give you an estimate ahead of time and get this so that if I do come out for a site visit, we know what we're getting into and we have a rough cost, and I'm not sending my best guy to a $2,500 siding repair project.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. You gotta have that data though to make that decision.
Yeah, so but a lot of times people have the data and you don't need all of the data and like all the specifics and financials and stuff, but there's a lot of things like throw the darts on the map, throw your wins, throw your bids, like let's draw that radius. And like I've shown some people that it's like your guys have probably collectively wasted 400, 500 hours driving to these jobs on these outside rings. And you think through like, who's my ideal customer? Well, who's the people that has other neighbors? Like Brad Akers talks about like his neighborhood referral strategy. It's like, yes, go after stuff like this where you're going to get a neighborhood that's got more people that live in it. Don't send that guy for this job that's 45 minutes west that nobody else lives near him. Like maybe you do get it, but he also could have just saved 2 hours of his day and gone and talked to some neighbors while he's in the neighborhood, or dropped by a real estate office in that area, or whatever it might be. And so those are the things where it's like the owner, and it's tough as the owner, as the sales guy, because it's like the same thing. You start as the guy, you're like, I got to make the sale. I got to keep the crews busy and I got to sell everything we can when we're slow. We'll bid yes to everything, but you forget how much time you lose not tending to your ideal customers by paying attention to those non-ideal customers.
Yep.
Could not agree more. Shout out to Brad Akers. We're going through his training right now. Very excited about that. And I've always been a proponent of efficiency and not wasting time. People just do not realize how much time it takes to go do one inspection for just driving to everything. They don't realize how much,
Dude, I was
whether
laughing.
you have 2 appointments a day and be wasting 6 hours that day that you could be doing other things that were helpful. And I'm really excited for going through Brad's program to help train our entire team. Clay is our new guy in Savannah, and Cameron as well is going to be learning this program. So we're going to be just more efficient. On the flip side, as we've been recording, I've been dealing with the other side, the other issue, which is Okay, let's say that this person is not an ideal customer. Well, we still need to give our best effort for that person. So here's a good example. They use Roof Quote Pro. Shout out to Roof Quote Pro. It's a great tool. Any of the tools are great. The measurements were off. Shocker. I know everybody says everybody's measurements are off. Well, it's very clear. And so the customer got an incorrect quote. So we're proactive showing, hey, it just looks like the measurements are off. Kathleen's doing this right now. And we're resending a new proposal from ProLine with accurate numbers, good, better, best, exactly the sales sheet that you just showed on the video. And shocker, he's ready to move forward because we're giving an accurate quote. Like, so we're not wasting 2 hours of our day, but we're going to sell this job because we're kind of covering our bases on both ends. We're being efficient. We're not going to waste our time with this person driving for 2 hours, but we are also going to give our best effort, use the technology that we have with both Roof Quote Pro, having a good website, all the things that we do already, then using ProLine's proposal that gives an accurate depiction of who we are and what to expect and why we're different. And it's very clear. I mean, like, he's getting other quotes. I'm looking at the feed right now. He's going to choose us because he's already gotten these other quotes, and we're very profitable. It's a 40% profit job. And he's going to choose us because of this, of the value that we're bringing with these sell sheets. Like, it is very clear. We never ask for like competitors' estimates, but it is very funny whenever the customer gives us their quotes. It's just hilarious. It's just like, you're not even trying, guys. You're not even trying at all. And so that's another thing about identifying what can make you different from the sales perspective, and then actually implementing it in your proposal as we're doing it right this minute.
Well, I mean, that is a perfect example of how starting, and honestly, John, I'll never forget. This is what made me pick up the phone one day and call you a few years back. There's an episode where you talked about like your job where shake, tear off, rained or whatever, got the whole, like, you just screwed up somebody's house, and it's like you just said, "Don't worry, like, I am going to take care of this," and it's like no matter what happens, if anything happens and goes wrong, we're going to fix it. And it's like knowing that that was the approach, and like, hey, if something goes wrong, I'll make sure we make it right. Having that, it's kind of built into the DNA of your business to some degree, but you can take those instances with a better looking sell sheet like this, where it's like, hey, I'm being proactive because, oops, we saw a mistake. You're right. Thanks for helping us catch this. It's a new technology. Let me send you this. And his first impression of like, idiots, is now boom, sell sheet. And he's like, he just gave you a second chance because now he sees these people. He's like, he can connect with the humans on the other end, versus if you had just did the instant roof quote, sent him a text-based quote and you didn't follow up or no re-engagement there. He's like, yeah, you're just like all the other idiots in the industry essentially. And so it's not just one of those things, like the virtual assistant with Kathleen, like we've got them in our business. That's a huge component for people to feel that like, hey, I can talk to somebody. I've got somebody that's responsive. And those things like that, where it's like, just go call that person right back. They're already on top of it. I don't have to instruct them to do those things, to be proactive in helping us, make that customer flip back into a positive.
Yep. So 8:35 this morning, he uses Roof Quote Pro. He gets an automated ProLine email, automated ProLine text. It has a YouTube, hey, here's your short 30-second video. It's just like our YouTube thing that we embed in ProLine's text and email. He views it. Kathleen calls. Let's see, what time did she call? She called a few minutes later. And 36-second call. Notes say he's not interested in doing an inspection. I'm like, what's going on there? He has an interest. Why is he not in? Something's happening. So then I create this 12-minute video, Loom video, to train Kathleen to say, hey, in this case, if they're not interested after you use our ballpark estimate, our Roof Quote Pro tool, you need to just say, hey, let me correct it. So we had to correct it on Roof Quote Pro, a big lead. Anyway, long story short, creating that process so that you're being efficient without having to drive somewhere to talk to somebody face to face. This is less than 2 hours ago as we're recording this. And he's already went from no way, I don't even want you to come to my house, to now, oh, you're probably going to do my roof. Like, I'm sure by the end of the day, we'll sell that job. And it's a really, really important thing to identify your ideal customer and then implement these processes in place. Like this is how people want to be sold. It's some sort of hybrid of doing online work, doing call work, inside sale work, providing what they want at the moment that they want it, which is 8:30 in the morning when most people are like starting their day and they have no idea. And you're like, they want the quote right then. And we're not the first person to give them a quote. And he's still looking for better answers. Like it's really, really important to identify all these things and then implement these processes. It's just going back to, again, what I'm saying is like, you're doing that for your customers, for your contractor customers, Chris. And you just need to, if you're listening and watching this, you need to do that. And you need to consistently do that with your team so you can train them to do the same things that you know to be true. Like that's going to be the key to your success.
I always thought about it like, what was your best day? Like, walk me through like your best day as a sales guy, where you're like, oh man, it was just like, I did everything I was supposed to. Everything happened as it should have. Like, I didn't get interrupted. And it's like, okay, well, why did that day happen? And then what prevents that from happening all the time? It's like, well, okay, yeah, I was following up really good. And then I got off of it because I got busy, and then we got busy for estimates. And like, it's the same thing where we, in the business on the operations side, if you're not building in that process for somebody else to do it when you get busy, you don't have the capacity for it. And then they get lost on the wayside. And then it's like you're always doing this cycle where it's like we go up for a little bit, we take more orders, and then we got to produce, and then we got to stop focusing on the selling so we can do the more producing. And so whether that's, in your case, Kathleen, or like an inside salesperson, it's not hard to train those things either. Like we got Loom, we have Scribe. There's so many easy ways to say, here's what I do. Like we train virtual assistants to do all of our estimates. We don't touch a customer until we show up for the appointment where it's already been booked. They've already seen an estimate. They're ready to, we become order takers. We're not salespeople in our business. And so we've set up those steps so that it's like, what's the activity that you as a sales guy are going to do the most frequently that you could take off your plate? All right, can we automate this or can we outsource this? And then what's the activities you're doing that take the most amount of time and they're not adding value? Great, same thing. And can we get 10 hours a week from you? Probably. And you can use that time to then go do the important stuff, which is let me go bring in more business, not let me keep fighting fires. So I told some people, I'm kind of like let's either install a sprinkler suppression system where it's just going to put out those fires for you, or you're going to hire some team members like a VA. It's like you can just have this guy that holds the fire extinguisher and he's running around wherever you need him to be and puts it out for you. And so like that's it. We're always putting out fires.
Very
Absolutely.
true.
Well, let's start wrapping this up. Chris, do you want to talk about where contractors can find you?
Yep. You can check out, so the website is built, by the way, building a website stinks. This is the first time I've ever done it myself. And so my website is readydiroll.com, Ready Diroll, Diroll. You can also go on Facebook, and I'm pretty active in a lot of the Facebook stuff. And then, reach out to John and AJ, the ProLine team. They know where to find me too. Yeah, that's all good places. So if there's stuff that, in closing real quick, it's like start with the free stuff. Go read some books, read those books that I mentioned. If you don't want to pay somebody to help you do it, just work alongside those guides. Start with the one-page marketing plan, and then I would start with Design Your Life. And if you get those two, that's going to kind of help you figure out where you want to maybe steer your compass a little bit more. And so like the people that I typically am working with right now, it can be some of the guys that are smaller, maybe under $1 million, but honestly, I funnel a lot of those people. It's like, go to Dave Sullivan, man. He's a great resource for guys like that, where it's like, if you're not doing $1 million, go talk to Dave, because he'll get you to $1 million with his processes, the basic stuff. And so a lot of the guys I'm working with, they're either kind of a few $1 million, or they're like, all right, I need to get a little more efficient. Help me, optimize this a little better. Or they're the people that are looking to the kind of the solo entrepreneur where they're already doing $1 million, a little bit more. And like, how do I scale this just to keep me in a sweet spot range, help me just optimize that business. So I've worked with some $10 million guys too that are also like, man, we need more of this process. And so it's like, let's build some sell sheets and teach your team to sell a little bit differently. So the processes that I put into our business, if we want the sizzle reel, we sold over 200 roofs. We did $4 million, and I was the only outside salesperson. And the way we did that, and it's not just me, it was me, my wife, and my sister-in-laws, and the VAs that we had, but like our process kicked ass, and we couldn't have sold a few thousand roofs in the past 7 years, and 40 years running now, but like we couldn't have done that without that process. And so if you're somebody that's like, my guys are running 2 appointments a week or 2 appointments a day, it's like, all right, I was running 6 a day because I could convey that same value in that same sales pitch and be more effective. And with all the money that's coming into our industry, if we are not driving to have an organization where you're getting more sales more quickly, the big money that's coming into it is going to have a longer runway than us to figure out ways to do that. And the route that it's all going to go, it's never going to be a fully virtual sales process, but we need to do as much as we can to digitize and make our processes more virtual, because when we do that, it takes off the overhead hours that we as the business owners have to pay somebody in our business to accomplish those tasks. And so softwares, automations, virtual assistants, there's all three really prongs to this, where if you're trying to do more with less, there's different approaches that are kind of meet everybody. And so call me. Discovery calls are free. If you want to sit down and have 30 minutes, let's chat. And it's something where if I can't help you, I'm going to steer you to the right person. So I always tell, it's like the wheel of my logo is like, I'm the little hub. If I'm not the guy in the middle, I'm going to send you in the right person to help, paint that color in your business, and then come back and we'll see what you need at the next step. So
Love that. Love that. I think your website looks great. I was looking at it the other day. I think you did a great job. I didn't realize you built that yourself.
yeah, so I was like, oh, this will take me a month. And it's like, whew, just getting almost done. So that's
Or a lot.
I'm not doing websites for people. That's definitely not going to happen. I will look at your website though. This is a service I've been helping people with, is like, let's just refresh your messaging. Let me do a video. I'll give you a review. Like, here's what you need to change because of that ideal customer is part of your blueprint. Like, let's start with that as part of this and then go from there. So
yeah, that makes sense. Let's run through those books one more time. I want to make sure I have them in the notes here for people. Design Your Life was the first one.
Yeah, Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. So blue book, and it also comes with a little journal where you can like do the workbook activities. One Page Marketing Plan by Alan Dibb.
Okay.
Marketing Made Simple by Donald Miller. That's the story brand. And then Fix This Next by Mike McAllowicz. This is a good place to start because he's got like 5 other books. The Fix This Next.
Mike.
Oh,
Mike.
Mike.
Profit
Isn't
first.
he like, is that Get Different?
Profit first.
Okay. Oh, Profit First.
Yeah. Well, he's Get Different too.
Oh, he'd also, Profit
Yeah.
First, Get Different.
He's got 5 books at
In,
least.
Pumpkin Plan, Clockwork. So Pumpkin Plan's a good one too for guys. Like, that was another one. Look at the Pumpkin Plan. Read his audio, listen to his audio books. They're easy. It's like if you can spend 8 hours on a Sunday watching 2 football games, you can listen to an audiobook in 7 hours and pick up so much more. Like, you got time in your week to listen to these things. And then the last one's the 4-Hour Work Week. If you've never read that book, it's a little dated at this point.
Yeah.
That's kind of start there, because like, if you don't think about your schedule and your life in that terms of like, what can I get off my plate to find those other things? Like, that's another good place to start, but it's a little older at this point now.
Still a gem. And I think the biggest concept from that book, and I read that years ago, was
like 15 years ago.
It's like you probably don't, to create the lifestyle you want, you probably don't need as much as you think you need. Yep. And it's all about architecting the lifestyle that you want and working back from that and build a business that gives you that lifestyle. Yep. So, well, great.
If you got children or hobbies that you'd rather be doing instead of working, talk to me, because like, that's what I want to help you get your work week back, so that you can find days in your work week so that your weekends are spent with your families and things that you want to be doing instead of spending hours on work. Like, that's what I want to help people do.
Absolutely.
I agree.
All right. Well,
thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming on, Chris. Yeah, no, this has been fun. And thank you for being such a support of ProLine over the years. And we'll look forward to continuing to work with you and your clients in the future. So,
sounds good, man.
All right. Thanks for joining, everybody. And we will see you next week.
Bye, everybody.